Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 75, Soul Codes and Energetic Signatures. I'm Michelle Hawk and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird. This podcast was born out of our conversations, our friendship, our sisterhood, and talking a whole lot about what the heck are we doing? What does it mean to be a practitioner in this world? How are we serving and how can we show up more? Eventually, we decided to make these conversations available to you. So thank you so much for joining us for this live panel discussion. Kat, how are you doing?
I'm good. I have a little bit of a cough, and I don't know if it's because of the fires nearby or what, but other than that, I'm amazing. Getting ready for a retreat this weekend, and so much going and doing, and just getting back from Portland and being at the I Am Alchemy retreat, which was epic and so much fun and super inspiring to get to be dialing in with your people, teaching alchemy and correspondences and working with different planets and marrying that with Qigong and taking Western and Eastern alchemy and bringing it all together that was just amazing. So I was really inspired from my trip up seeing you for sure.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for that reflection. So in case you missed it, last week we actually took off because we were recovering from aforementioned retreat. So in case that wasn't
right.
clear.
We were recovering in the form of ceremony.
Right. Like being in nature and camping. Like that was our form of recovery because there wasn't enough energy moving during the weekend.
We went on a unicorn float down the river.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was our version of recovery. And so that, but yeah, Kat is absolutely right. We moved a lot of energy. It was super fun. And, I think that really speaks to a little bit of not only where I'm at right now, but also what the heck is coming up for people in the collective, because we're still in this really fun, I don't know, eclipse corridor. And I don't know about everybody else, but I am definitely feeling that in a super interesting way. And I feel I've been using the analogy of like, I'm the duck sitting on the ocean of like, okay, there's waves like this, but at least I'm on top and most of the time not getting sucked under and thrashed, but most of the time just kind of sitting, but knowing, oh, there's lots of waves going on.
Right. So, this is the fun time for spiritual masochists.
Right. Fun. Yes. It's things and be present with being really uncomfortable. So it's, a good time to be squeezed. Literally, figuratively, go get a hug, go give somebody a hug. We all need it. And so today, though, we're bringing our conversation to soul codes and energetic signatures. Now, I'd love to give you all a clue into what we're doing this month overall, as we are welcoming special guest Holly Rhiannon next week. So that's on Tuesday the 14th. And we will be recording an hour earlier than usual. So please do put that in your calendars if you'd like to join us live at noon Pacific time next week on Tuesday, because we're accommodating her time difference. She'll be coming to us live from England. And she'll be speaking with us about the codes of Avalon. So this week, as we are preparing to look at, what are soul codes so that we can have more information going into next week. So we're building on that knowledge base, and then we'll spend the rest of August examining personal mythology, working with dragons, and some of these other Avalon aspects as well. So just so you know, this is what we've got coming up in August. It's a super exciting month. There's a lot of really high frequency stuff going on. So we are just diving straight into super esoteric, very mythological practice, because why the heck not?
Yep, absolutely. And I just changed it on my calendar too. So so I'll be there. It'll be great.
Yay! Awesome. We'll have the other 50% of our host co. But today, as we're diving into soul codes, that I really encourage you to keep all of this in mind, especially, and please do join us live next week, because I'd love for you all to have the opportunity to ask questions to Holly Rhiannon. She's really quite a wonderful practitioner, an amazing human, and super fascinating. But as we're looking at soul codes today, let's jump into that. This is a thing that I feel like I see come up every now and then in the world. Maybe I'm just not paying all that much attention, but it's something that comes up a lot in my practice with people. Kat, I know this is something that's come up in our work as we're doing channeling work and teaching. We did that visionary code activation thing in February, and master code work, and it's been a lot of fun to explore different aspects of this.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. Especially in channeling work, there seems to be a lot of stuff around what is the soul doing and these soul codes that we have. And always when I'm working with healers and people as they're uncovering themselves and advancing, it seems as though those codes of who they are on that soul level are clicking into place, and they're receiving these codes into their being, into your body, into the field, and going through a process of integrating and being able to now walk with these codes that are coming in on these very deep levels. And perfect time to be having this conversation, because this can be a very confusing, intense, mystifying. Is this really what is the thing that's coming up? Is this what I'm receiving that has to do with me, what I'm here to do and why I'm here and what my soul's here to do? It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like maybe I'm making this stuff up, because how could I be that amazing or interesting or unique?
You are that amazing. Let's just say it right now. You are, absolutely. Right. This is something, and I think it's a combination of codes coming in, but also codes being activated.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. And, so let's kind of begin with, what the heck are we talking about? There's, and I like to use the analogy of, we all have DNA, right? This is a familiar concept of, we have genetic material that reads like a sequence. It is a code that the different letters in the DNA correspond to codons, which create proteins, which create our cells, which create biomaterial. And so that's your 30-second genetics lesson and biomolecular chemistry lesson right there. So DNA codes for proteins, which makes stuff, right? And so this is our genetic material, our biomaterial. And I'm going to insert one piece here, which I think is super fascinating. And maybe we can return to this. I'm not sure if it's totally relevant, but I do have to say, in all my training, all my years as a biologist, there's this one term that keeps coming up that blows my mind, because I don't understand how this can be a thing. It's called junk DNA. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're familiar with this, maybe not, people who are tuning in, but the idea of junk DNA is, we have sections of our DNA that code for known sequences and proteins. And then we have these massive sequences, like most of our DNA, scientists have no idea what the heck it codes for. And so they called it junk DNA, which I think is stupid, because there's no such thing as junk biomass, junk material.
Right. There's no reason that we would have a bunch of stuff that doesn't mean anything. It's just there for no reason. Right. And I think there are a lot of scientists who've been, I forget what they're calling it now, but that have been trying to say this, we can't keep calling this junk DNA just because we don't understand it. It's like calling the farthest reaches of the universe the junk universe, because we're unable to comprehend what the heck is going on out there. And if we can know scientifically and look at that DNA and look at those codes and know that there is this huge mass that we're not able to understand, just the same as there is a huge portions of our brain that we're not able to understand. And we are constantly finding out new things about neurons that are in our guts or in our hearts, and things that are going on inside of our bodies. Like every single day we are discovering things that we never would have thought possible, and much less 50, 100, 500 years ago, what we thought about just the human body alone, or our solar system, or the universe, whatever we want to make that reference to. So within that, then we can make that reference, right? That what's going on our soul level, what's going on with us as an individuated being here in this little body on this little planet, can be something beyond our comprehension. And at any moment, at any day, our comprehension of what that is could expand exponentially to a place that we never would have thought that it could have gone before. Even just an hour before or a minute before, we can have a shift in our awareness that changes everything, the same as science does constantly every single day.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Absolutely. So get ready to have your mind blown at absolutely no notice. Maybe right now. That's okay if it doesn't. I'm not attached. And so returning to this idea of our genetic material and this, mystery DNA, I think is one of the terms that has come up as an alternative to junk DNA because of the ego behind that. Oh my God. And, looking at this material, it is possible. And I think I have heard some theories. I don't know if it's me sort of like wishful thinking, like think this thing, like look at this thing about our soul codes and our energetic signatures, part of the thing that might be in that code that nobody knows what it's for. So I share that with you as a possible, think about that, see how that feels to you, or, feeling into, are there other energetic implications or subtle body implications of this mystery genetic material as a physical landing space for the soul codes in the human body. So insert that, bookmark it, let's leave it there and think about it later. So the genetic material, I use this as a helpful analogy because we have genes that code for specific physical traits. We also have soul codes and bioenergetic signatures or energetic signatures that code for certain energetic traits, such as our propensities and intuitive abilities here in the body, our auric predisposition, our energetic lineages, our archetypal influences, our shifting into and coming into our purpose, our primary mission that we're here to activate. All of these things have associated code, soul code, just like DNA has genetic code that translates to physical, phenotypical expression. So like embodied expression.
Exactly. And so if we can make that correlation and say, okay, if this exists and then this exists, then what else are soul codes? I think it's kind of like we've listed quite a few things of all of these ways that these different codes can affect us energetically through the timeline of our life, of when things happen, when things are activated at certain points in time, of the way that we're set up, the way that our system is sort of set up to engage with the world, what is happening, and the way that it maybe takes on stuff or is very already comes in very strong and not taking on a lot of stuff, the way that it's communicating with other beings on the more subtle level that we're remembering is a huge part. And we talk a lot about remembering. And I know that in your work and in my work, there's a lot of intention on not only, sure, I can train you in modalities, I can train you in techniques, I can train you in theory, and yet what I found is that the process of remembering and allowing these soul codes to come to the surface can be the most transformational portion of the work of someone seeking to find their purpose or whatever their mission is, right?
Absolutely. I think the remembering and allowing coupled with on purpose activation is this other piece that comes into play when, well, how do we work with soul codes? So, if we're following this, like if this, then that. So if soul codes are a thing, which for the purposes of our discussion, we're saying, yes, they are. And we know that they're there. Okay. So now I know that they're there. Like, what does that do for me? Why is that important? And I think you mentioned one really important piece of it. As we are coming into our power and our expression as light workers, as healers, as change makers, there are codes for that, by the way, that either have already been activated for you as a part of your learning curve trajectory, or it is part of your journey to go in, discover, and work with those codes to deliberately activate and come into your energetic expression as a fully embodied, authentic, grounded, living that code. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like, why is this important? I don't know. People, does that make sense? Like, let us know. And yeah. Is this something that you've experienced too? Go ahead and chat in and let us know what has that been like for you. I will share also that, some of these codes, I think one of the ways that I most commonly see them being activated in people or having people step into them or activate them are in association with gifts or challenges, particularly like either there is a gift, an intuitive gift or healing gift or psychic gift or some sort of gift that is unlocked and activated. And it almost feels like that awakening experience of like, bam, hits you out of nowhere. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, I can do this thing now. Like I talk to trees and they tell me things like that never happened before. There is a soul code in you that was activated to have that ability and have that experience. And there's also, so sometimes it gets activated for us and sometimes it's something that we ask for and we seek out and have an experience on purpose. There are also our initiation cycles are associated with this soul code as well. So Kat and I have done several episodes on cycles of initiation, cycles of power. Dark Night of the Soul actually was our last episode with special guest Andrea Lita, and looking at our lunar consciousness of grief, during which we talked about Dark Night of the Soul, and looking at these initiatory experiences also as correlating to soul code activation of like, okay, it's time for this initiation. It's time for this initiation.
Right. And so I think that's important to remember. Sometimes it just happens. You're walking along, you're just skipping through the forest and some animal starts talking to you, or, whatever it is, something just happens and you feel an internal shift and as though you are more you than you felt before. And that you maybe have that sense of homecoming, of awareness, of feeling more embodied maybe, or inside of yourself in a different way, as though you have some other awareness about yourself, about the world, about your gifts, about your purpose than you did before. And this can just happen spontaneously. Or as you said, it can happen because we're asking for it, because we are connecting to our guides and angels and beings of light, those that are supporting this path and this mission that we're on, for support in activating the codes that we are carrying so that we may be more fully aligned with our mission and create the work that we're meant to create on this planet in this lifetime now. So basically that, just saying that on a consistent basis will help to activate these codes, being intentional about who you're asking help from, your higher self, utilizing your own focus and intent on allowing this to happen is more of the purposeful way of I'm seeking the next initiation into my soul codes activation.
Yes, absolutely. And then the flip side of this is sometimes there are soul codes that we don't want active. And this comes through largely in the expression of ancestral trauma, lineage trauma, or acting out patterns. Again, it's like if you inherit a gene for a disease or a predisposition to a disease or cancer or something from your lineage, there are little genes get turned on or turned off, right? And so then if that gene is turned on, there are various supplements and minerals, etc., that people have reported to turn off cancer genes. But looking at the analogy here is, if you're acting out a soul code that is not serving you, it is possible to go in and click it off. And usually, I mean, there's more to it than that, because we got to go back up and clear out the lineage and do the ancestral healing work and all these other pieces. And yet this is an important part of it, is I am not in agreement with expressing this soul code. I understand that it will stay with me. This is the other thing. Just like with our genes, we have it. It's not necessarily active, but it's there. And if it's there, but it's not active, it's not causing any harm. So please don't feel like, oh, I have to go in and rewrite my soul code and I have to erase this thing. That may or may not be a part of your process. But knowing that if I take this soul code, which up until now has caused a great deal of harm and trauma in my lineage and perhaps in my own life too, and I'm transmuting it and I'm learning the lesson from it and I'm receiving the gift and I am allowing that to turn off and end with me, and I will not pass this activated code on to my energetic and biological offspring, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing too.
Yeah, this is super important to remember. And oh my gosh, it's so important to remember. And we can sometimes get lost in all of this, right? And the other way that often, I just want to mention this also that oftentimes I see people have these soul codes activated through working with a practitioner or doing a practice. And they might go to see a particular practitioner and they're like, holy crap, I just did this thing and all of a sudden this stuff, and what the heck? And oftentimes that can be very positive. Sometimes it cannot be positive. And sometimes some of these more challenging soul codes can even be activated through processes that we're going through. And we can assume, sometimes we go, well, I'm the victim of having this thing activated and I didn't have this problem before. But we can assume that it is time for us to deal with it, that it's time for us to clear it out, that it's we had needed to and are capable of going through the process of doing whatever the work is to clear this out and to master these things. Sometimes it's almost like they can be activated so quickly that we become overwhelmed by a new awareness or gift or something that's coming through. It can feel destabilizing. And then we have to go through this process of figuring out, okay, how do I stabilize this gift? How do I stabilize this ability in my system? So that I can continue to live my life and be a functioning human on the planet. And this is often where people get very frustrated and confused and it's like, what's happening? And what did I do? And did I mess myself up? And now what? Now what do I do? So sometimes this stuff comes in and it's just integrates and it's easeful and you're just like, oh, now I can talk to trees and it's great. And sometimes it's like, wait, I feel like I have just whacked myself out and I'm trying to, it takes a little while to fully integrate what's happening before it comes to center. Sometimes we think that we should be fully integrated and be able to take whatever this thing is and have already mastered it and already figured out how to promote it and put it on the internet and sell it to 100 people and teach it all over the world. But often there is an incubation, mastery, integration aspect of what these soul codes are so that we can go through and, as you're saying, Michelle, clean up the stuff that's not in alignment. because that's what I see is oftentimes these codes might come in and activate. And especially if we seem to kind of push them forward a little quickly, like we're impatient. And so we're like, yes, give me all the codes, do it. I'm going to go to everybody and get all the codes activated. And then we're a little bit overwhelmed because now we have all of this stuff that's clicked in place. And anything that's not in alignment with that starts to be pushed to the surface and pushed through the system, and the energy body starts to shift very quickly, and things start to come up that we have to deal with now that maybe we weren't dealing with before.
And this is where it usually gets uncomfortable, so if you're having this experience of, okay, I'm coming into this new soul code activation, and now there's all this stuff in my life that doesn't align or fit with that. And we actually had somebody chat in, I really love this, I'd love to read it, saying, so much of this is ringing true over past couple of months, many soul codes activating, especially around communing with nature. Also, over past 2 days have been guided to work with switching off ancestral codes that no longer serve. Has been and is such an immense process. Much of it is beyond anything I can comprehend. I'm now working to stabilize the information coming through. It's amazing and a privilege to be awakening to this level of soul work. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for you. Thank you for sharing. And this, I think, really speaks to what a lot of us are experiencing. There is this activation and this processing, this like readjustment of, okay, now that I have this understanding, more conscious understanding as to what soul codes are active, what soul codes are inactive, how do I want to make that adjustment energetically? Think of it like, biochemically, again, they can go in and they've done this in looking at genetic engineering and figuring out genealogy and stuff, turning on genes that then become expressed in the physical body, or turning off genes that expression stops. And we can do the same thing in our soul code of, okay, how can I go in and work to activate this, have this experience, deal with the integration of it. This is the other, Kat, I love that you're speaking of it. Like, there will be stuff that doesn't fit with that anymore. So please be prepared as you are, I was going to say messing with, but that feels a little cavalier. As you're going into work with your soul codes and make appropriate adjustments, please understand that there is life-related and physically embodied stuff that will also have dramatic change as a result. I cannot emphasize that enough. Please be prepared. Don't be scared. Don't let that scare you, but know that there are big physical embodiment changes that come with making soul code changes. Mm-hmm. In case that wasn't obvious.
So I'm curious what we would say would be the implications. Like, okay, so some stuff might turn on or turn off. Like, why would we do this? So we're saying it's uncomfortable and we might be surprised, or so what are the implications of us doing this kind of work?
Well, I think let's go back to what somebody just chatted in and shared about the turning off of ancestral codes and really making adjustments to, well, what have I been carrying and what no longer feels in alignment or appropriate. And I know that I've done some of this work myself. So let's start with what are the implications of turning that off? Looking to, okay, what unhealthy soul codes or what perhaps harmful soul codes have been prevalent throughout our genetic and our energetic lineages. How are they serving, or how are they no longer serving? And then by turning that off, and I've witnessed some of the expression of this where, okay, it's been created a shift for myself, not only for myself, but for the lineages, energetic and genetic lineages, to look at, okay, because I did this work, not only am I feeling it, but my family is feeling it. And my family is experiencing catharsis around this thing I didn't even tell them about, around working with my own soul codes and having it ripple effect through the lineages. And I think that right there is a really, really important one, because there are so many profoundly unhealthy soul codes that we are still carrying individually and as a population, as a society. Looking at soul codes around trauma, around poverty, around suffering, around persecution, around slavery, around judgment, around hierarchy, around patriarchy, around all of these things that we hear around misogyny. And this is part of the soul code too. And so I invite this, I share this to, as we're looking at this, well, you can say, okay, well, misogyny isn't a part of my soul code because I'm a woman and I love women and feminism, woo. And yet this is the other piece. As long as that soul code is active in some people, it is active in the collective field. Mm-hmm. So please know that and as long as there is something in the collective field, it exists for all of us. And part of our work is to do the personal work and make the necessary adjustments of like, okay, well, what do I want to carry through and what do I want to express and how can I turn these on and off as needed? And also know that it's so much bigger and it's so much beyond that. So as we're, for example, looking at the soul code of slavery, this is something that I've channeled about around as long as there are some people in the world who are enslaved, and right now we have a whole lot of people in the world who are slaves, mm-hmm. slaves in the literal sense, or slaves to debt, or slaves to the jobs they hate, or slaves to obligation, or whatever. And as long as that is the case for some of us, it will be the case for all of us because it exists in the collective field.
Right. And
this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And because of that, we can know that going through our own internal processes and recognizing where this is within us and doing the work to move through this stuff energetically, to take on and bring in something new for us and to activate that in the world, to activate ourselves, moving that out into the world and clearing up those pieces that we have by changing ourselves, by changing our actions and our day-to-day ways that we engage, the ways that we think, the ways that we move through things, and seeing where we're stuck and acknowledging those pieces. And by doing that for ourselves, we are, as part of the collective, as we are all in this together, we are having an effect on the collective who we are in. We know that the collective is going through this enormous process. And this process that we're going through is a lot of purging and a lot of releasing and a lot of needing to change these codes and bring in something new, something completely different. And this is the only way that we as a society are going to be able to move forward in a way that's in alignment, that takes care of each other and the planet and all of the things that we see that are not working. We can see all of these codes in action right now. We can see them in our governments and in our financial institutions and in the way our prison systems and our educational systems, all of the systems that we have are a reflection of our internal codes that have been activated into the world. And the only way to change those systems is to be a part of the recoding on the individual level and then coming out from that place. And also being a part of service to humanity, of helping others to find their codes and to integrate their codes and to heal themselves and heal their ancestral lines and their lineages and their communities, and coming out from center, moving outward, creating a profound effect in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a question that I'd like to pose that I'm not sure if this is just the question that I would ask if I heard someone presenting this, or maybe I'm feeling some of you think it or ask it, but that idea of, is it necessary for every single person in the world to go through this process in order to have this result that we're talking about? And the answer is no. There will be people who have no idea that this is what's happening. And that's okay. there will be people who would never in a million years dream that the idea of soul codes was a thing, and yet they are also participating in this process. And I almost want to visit it, like, how does this work then? If we are doing this is a massive undertaking. Let's be honest. This, we're talking like worldwide revolution of consciousness here. No big deal. And approaching it with a smile rather than a holy shit, this is an impossible task, right? Because there is that energetic tipping point where, and there's, been several discussions in this. I mean, there's a book called The Tipping Point, right? That looks at what is the percentage of people or the percentage of beings. And they actually looked at this group of monkeys who were washing fruit in the water, right? And what is the percentage of beings needed to be involved in order to just have that landslide effect for the collective? Even if most of the people don't actually know what's going on, they just start doing it because this quantum number of people is reached. This is what is needed. We do not need every single person to start overhauling their soul codes. We just enough.
And this is what we're talking about when we talk about light workers and those that have come and all of, why are the star seeds and all of these people that have these very special, fancy, mystical titles that we've given ourselves to make ourselves feel special, I guess. But we are special. So it's like, why are we here? What are we doing? Why do we give a shit about this stuff? And this is really it. This is the why, because otherwise we could look at, well, how many people are you really affecting if you're seeing clients in your, whatever you're doing in your day-to-day life. And we have billions of people on the planet. And so we could actually kind of get down on ourselves of our effect on the collective unless we start to see things from this larger perspective. And I would say that, and Michelle, when you bring in channeled material, because I would say that this is a part of a lot of channeled stuff that comes through, is around this phenomenon of the collective consciousness being an important piece to be aware of, so that we are shifting together, so that we're going through this process, and that each one of us is important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Each person is a part of that collective force that will eventually reach the tipping point. Mm-hmm. That point where we're building. We're all doing the work individually. We're all working with our personal shit, and we're also supporting clients. We're doing healing work. We're supporting our friends. We're supporting our communities. And we are collectively building this field of people. In this case, we're humans. We're building this field of beings who are invested in this new way moving forward, who are building a new earth, who are birthing a new earth. We do not need 100%. We don't. Let's stop. I don't know if this was in anyone's awareness. This is something I think about, of like, how do we get everyone on board? We don't need everyone on board. We just need enough. And so as we're doing this work to shift the collective field, we will reach this tipping point where maybe it's like 30%. I don't know. I read the book quite a while ago. I don't remember what they said the official tipping point was. But if we are doing this work enough to bring these soul codes into fully expressed activation and deactivate these harmful codes, it will start to landslide. It will start to have an exponential effect. And this is momentum. This is energetic momentum. I feel like I want to visit, what are some of these codes that we're talking about? What are we seeing coming up for activation in the collective field? Kat, I know you've seen some in particular. Are there any that are jumping out at you to share?
Well, like you said, there's these gifts and there's also challenges. And so a lot of times these soul codes seem to come in as it's like a thread of remembering where I have been and where I am going, and feeling that as this spiral of experience and spiral of information that's coming in. And starting to become aware of something that's new. So it could be being able to channel and bring through information from higher level beings. It could be having healing gifts come on is often something that comes up quite frequently. And, you know, where like I've had the experience of being like, okay, somebody is not doing any healing work. They're not in that field. They're not doing that at all. And then, you know, all of a sudden they have massive heat in their hands and they know exactly what to touch and exactly what to say. And it's very profound and they're doing very deep work. So those of us that are in these healing arts and different professions like this, we might be getting new soul codes all the time, and we'll see that expressed in our work. Like, oh, okay, I never did that before, but that's something that just happened and was amazing and had this great effect in this session. And that can be just like this little uptick of a code that's coming in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a big one where we're seeing a lot of this, especially in this field of people waking up to new abilities as these pieces are activated. There are also a lot of archetypal codes that are in the activation process right now. And some of those I think are really important to share, one of which being the code of mastery. We have the master code activation, which I actually have done this work with several people about, okay, here is this master code that is ready to be turned on. What are the implications of that? What is it like to be fully embodied in our mastery? What is it like to have a descended master? When we had a special guest, Katerina Satori, on a couple of months ago, this was something that she talked about, is we don't need any more ascended masters. We need descended masters living here in the body on the earth. This is part of that, is activating and embodying the soul code of mastery so that we can bring that frequency to that field. Again, building that quantum field toward the tipping point. The mastery being one of them. I think the royal codes are also getting a lot, they're coming up a lot, you know, the queen and king archetypes. And as we're activating the royal codes, re-envisioning the archetypes in light of the royalty. So not just a healer, but what is a queen healer like, and not just you know, not an artist, but a king artist. And bringing in that level of power and sovereignty and service to these archetypes, which historically have not been associated with royalty. Mm-hmm. And I see coming up a lot. It's really fascinating.
And we did an episode on the royal archetypes last year at some point. So that's an important one. And we do have a question about speaking about mastery in terms of downloading a code versus dedicated practice.
Awesome. Great question. I would say both and.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Yeah. So mastery, I'm a firm believer in the idea that mastery comes from practice and there are no shortcuts. Now that is the embodied, expressed mastery. And yet there are also soul codes that allow us to step into and claim that, to embody that fully. And there are people who practice things a bajillion times who I would not consider masters, mm-hmm. because they have not actually stepped into the identity of that. And there are people who are very, very masterful who have not yet done the 10,000 hours. And so it's this interesting, like, okay, you're very masterful, and yet it hasn't fully integrated and landed in the body. This mm-hmm. would be an example of someone who has the code, but not the practice. And then the practice, but not the code, is, okay, you've done this a bajillion times, but where's the spark? Where's the life, the authenticity to it? Does that make sense? I hope that answered the question. And Kat, I'm wondering, if you have any other thoughts about it?
Well, I think it's that marriage of the two. And we can see people come in with a code, and then you give them the practice and they're soaring. Like it's just like there. And then usually with the practice, then they're able to get more and more codes coming in. And it's it's not that, oh, I don't have the code, like, please don't be, I don't have the code for this, so I'm, don't need to be doing that, or, whatever, this practice isn't for me because I don't have the code for it. That's bullshit. Please don't be that way. Please don't do that thing.
What if we can just assume, and actually I would like to offer the idea that we all have all the codes. Like, let's just, and this is something that
you got all the codes.
You got all the codes. Like, it's not about acquiring anything that you don't have, and let's, I have no idea. I have no way of checking if this is true or not. I mean, all of this, like, we have no way of checking if this is true, but this is based on our, our best practice and work in the field is like, we have everything we need. And if it's in the collective, it's a part of what we have too. So you have master codes. Everyone has master codes. Everyone has royal codes. Is it in alignment? Is it part of your soul path to activate that or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So are we ready to talk about like we don't have much time left. So how do we do this? And what are some tips that we can give people on this work specifically?
Come work with me and Kat. And also ask. So earlier I honestly, I would say go back to the recording. We'll put this up on YouTube, and iTunes and Stitcher will be at the end of the month. On YouTube will be within the next few days. So go back, and earlier I had a whole little spiel where I said asking for this stuff to come in. Just write that down and just start working with it. So ask, being in presence for this to happen, that it is a possibility, that you're asking and you're bringing it in, working with people like Michelle and myself and so many other amazing, incredible people out there that you can work with to help to activate these codes within you. Practices. So there are a lot of practices, whether you are drawn to Kundalini yoga or Qigong or breath work or shamanic drumming, different kinds of trance-inducing practices can be very helpful for this. So anything that alters your consciousness will be in assistance for opening the consciousness enough for this stuff to start to shift and change. A lot of times if we're constantly in our brain and our monkey mind, it makes it a little bit more challenging because it's almost like we're swatting the flies of the stuff trying to come in. We're like, hey, get out of here. You're confusing me. I'm thinking about something. So the more that we can just get into a meditative state or an altered state of consciousness through utilizing some sort of trance-inducing technique, such as breath work, drumming, dance, any kind of movement practice, could be anything, float tank, like, there's so many different ways that we can induce trance states that can bring us into this flow, which is, we have altered ourselves enough to enter into a different frequency where these soul codes have an easier time coming in. There's and I'd love to steer you also toward a masterclass that I did at the end of last year, which is on the soul contract. And so the soul codes and the soul contracts, they're not necessarily the same thing, but they are related. And so that's an additional resource that you can find through my website. The allowing yourself to, I also want to assume or invite you to assume that you're on the right track. Like, I know that sounds really simple, and yet that's a really obvious thing is this real? Is this, am I making this up? Questioning of like, I have a feeling that there's this soul code about trauma that's wanting to be, healed through my ancestral line, but like, could I just be making that up because I know about XYZ? Like, well, okay, I can tell you, like, just assume that you're on the right track, assume that you are being guided. If that is your intent, revisit again what Kat said earlier in the episode. If you're asking for help and you're intending to bring healing, bring illumination, and bring integration to these soul codes, follow your meanderings, follow your intuition, follow your guidance, and explore. And again, entering that state of openness. It's like if you're, I almost want to use I don't know. I was going to go through a complicated metaphor about the DNA being like packed in the chromosomes and like you can't get that's not super helpful for right now. But going into the state of expansion where you can access and work with those things, it is not the same as operation mode. So, taking yourself out of your normal context to be doing some review, soul code review. Think about like you take the website offline so you can work on it, right? Like you don't have it going while it's like functioning while you're working on it. So the same sort of thing exists in the soul consciousness and the soul code.
Right. And so it can be very helpful for some. So how does your system work? Are you an embodied person who needs to dance a lot in order to be in this place? Are you someone who would be very served by spending some time sitting and journaling and asking these questions? What are the soul codes that I'm holding right now? And just letting stream of consciousness come out. What are the soul codes that need changing? What are the soul codes that I'm willing to bring in? What am I activating right now? What do I need to do in order to integrate this soul code? So there's, I don't know, what was that? How many questions that I just asked? Those would be an incredible journal prompts for being able to work through this work. So what were they, Michelle? What are the soul codes? I have no idea. Go back and listen.
It was great, whatever you just said, but I love that, tapping into the subconscious and allowing that to express, because again, you already know everything you need to know. We had somebody ask a question, how do you feel about psychedelics? I'm assuming you're asking specifically in reference to this work and to this practice. They can be a useful tool, entheogenic plant medicines, mushroom medicines, or other psychedelic substances can be helpful. You don't need them.
Yeah. I mean, generally you don't actually. People think that they need stuff, but they don't. But, a lot of people do find that, I would say entheogens, ayahuasca, mushrooms, these can be helpful, 5-MeO. Sometimes these can be helpful tools for some people. They are not to be relied on. They are not the answer. You already have all the answers. It's just they're giving you a doorway to get to those answers. You can find that doorway in other ways and other practices. Absolutely. I think that when we say psychedelics and we talk about maybe LSD or 2CB, these a little bit more man-manufactured psychedelics might have a little bit more not there. I don't know. I don't prefer them as far as for this kind of work.
Sure. I would actually offer and encourage everyone is entitled to their own exploration. So if that is something that you feel genuinely called to explore, know that it is one of many doorways.
Yeah.
It is not my preferred doorway for a variety of reasons. Number one, it is a little more challenging to integrate. Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of, everybody has revelations, everybody has visions, right? Okay, now put that into practice in your lived experience. It is a more challenging translation of the medicine that you receive into your lived experience. And remember, this is where it matters. The lived experience, the proof is in the pudding. If you have the biggest blow your mind epiphany during your ayahuasca experience and it does jack shit for your lived human embodied experience, it wasn't worth it, in my opinion. It is easier to translate other sorts of altered experiences into your human life, such as meditation, such as yoga practice, such as embodied practice, because you are still within your field in a different way. Mm-hmm. If you're working something that sends you into a different field, it will be harder to apply in a way that is actually useful to you.
Yeah. And that being, this is the path of some people. So it's choose your path and choose your poison and do what you want to do. And know that if we are engaging in, so these medicine work is a fast path. If we are engaging in a fast path, it is vital and important to balance that with a slow path. If you only fast path, then that can be very challenging on the energy body, on the physical body, on the system, on integration, as Michelle is saying. If you can fully, and I mean with integrity, balance with the slow path, with qigong, with meditation, with nature, being in nature, being still, the slow path, you'll find a greater ability to integrate and work with these energies. It's that oftentimes we're just like, blast me out, and I just want to do the really fast, quick piece.
Right. It's an option. I don't think either of us really recommend that necessarily because it's not super sustainable. And so just be informed, as with any path. I'd like to add that in, as with any path or any teacher or any doorway that you are choosing to walk through and work with, inform yourself, ask questions, be educated, and know going in the necessary or associated challenges and benefits.
Yeah. And some people, that's what you're here to do. So figure out how to keep that in balance.
Yeah, absolutely. We also had one other person offering, thank you for the confirmation. I've often questioned if what is happening is real, yet I know it's getting stronger in my system. Awesome. Yep, you're doing great. If you are, again, I have that invitation to you to go back to assume that you're on the right track, assume that your intention is leading you in the appropriate direction, and trust yourself. Really, this is another big one, is like, just trust yourself with this. Again, like, I have no freaking way to prove any gosh darn thing I said during this podcast other than my felt sense of trust.
Yeah.
Trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think that it's important to put in this conversation that your family, your friends, the people that knew you when you were a teenager or whatever, they might not be able to relate to, understand, or talk about what the heck you're experiencing, going through, or talking about when this is occurring. Do not expect them to. Do not think that you're crazy or wrong or bizarre, or you can't trust what's coming through because they can't relate to it. But know that sometimes this creates some discord in our lives when all of a sudden we've jumped from here to here and everybody in our life is still over here.
This is some of the possible side effects of working with your soul codes is, again, there will be things in your life that are no longer in alignment.
And as Michelle said, though, you don't have to explain to your mom and dad or your grandma about ancestral lineage and the work that you're doing and how you're healing the line of the family in order for them to have the effect, to feel the energetic and the emotional experience of that shift within themselves. They don't need to understand it or even be engaging with it in any kind of way in order to reap the rewards and benefits. So you're not leaving them out or keeping them out of the amazing information and gift and knowledge that you now possess. You are just doing it through a more subtle, energetic, and emotional field level, and that is perfect and beautiful. And there will be lots of people that you can talk about this with and explain this with. They will come into your life, I promise, because soul codes, we also have, I don't know if we've even talked about this, but soul families, we will, there are other people who will be drawn to you as you activate your codes.
We got to do an episode on that. Haven't even gone there yet. And we are actually over time for today. And thank you so much for all the awesome questions, the comments. It's a lot of fun to hear, how is this showing up for you? What are you noticing? Let's offer our closing invitation. If there's anything else that you would like to share with us, any question that you didn't get to ask, you can go ahead and reach out to us via our email address, shamansistersessions@gmail.com. You can contact us through our website, shamansistersessions.com, through our Facebook page. You can find all our past episodes. We referenced a couple that might be useful for you to go back and review. You can find them all on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. And again, please join us for next week with our special guest, Holly Rhiannon, talking about the codes of Avalon. These are very specific soul codes and energetic signatures that we'll be dealing with in this mythological and mystery school. Kat, what updates do you have for us?
Let's see. This weekend, I have a Healers Process retreat down here in Southern California. I have one spot left for one lucky, amazing person. If this is you, reach out right away. And you can join a collective of healers who are on the path for energetic and spiritual mastery and activating our soul codes and what that means to live a soul code activated life in the world. So reach out immediately to me via Facebook or what other means, katherinebird.com, to get you on board. And is that it, Michelle? I also have upcoming, my next thing that I'm doing is called Immortal Warrior, and I will be doing some in-person series working on staff Qigong. So if you're in the San Diego-ish area and you're interested in learning Qigong with a big wooden staff, then connect with me.
Awesome. That sounds so exciting. And maybe you'll do an online version so those of us not in San Diego.
If I can figure out how not to hit my computer with those.
Okay, wonderful. And I would like to invite you. I actually just opened applications for I Am Medicine, which is the fall iteration of my one-on-one spiritual mentorship work. If you are a healer, coach, practitioner, change maker, on purpose, mission driven person who is saying, fuck yeah, I am ready to step into my light warrior path. Maybe you're already there and you just want to up level your game. Go ahead and contact me, michelle@joyofenergy.com, and I will go ahead and send you the application. This is the only way to work with me until spring next year, as I am doing a closed container so I can be fully present with those people who are ready to step into this work. Again, michelle@joyofenergy.com. Enrollment ends the last week of August, so we're about 3 weeks left to apply. I'm taking interviews. I'm interviewing everybody personally to make sure that you're an amazing fit for this one-on-one work with me. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah.
And join us next week 1 hour early, right? Tuesday at noon instead of 1 o'clock next week. And we will have, again, Holly Rhiannon, and we will be talking about the codes of Avalon.
Beautiful. Thank you again so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for the awesome questions and participation. We love it when you ask questions because we can answer them here. And again, go ahead and shoot us an email if anything else comes up before next week. Sending you much love. Great job. Go activate those soul codes. Woo! Bye.